Let's bring in retired FBI supervisory agent James Gagliano, live outside of Nancy Guthrie's home. So one of the big questions, James, a lot of us have, what are the points of entry? We saw that at one point in time that investigators were on the roof. It would appear that the exit location was the front door because that's where you see the blood splatter. But where else could the suspect have entered into the home?
So, Lawrence, I'm going to take a look at this as a former FBI SWAT team leader. And so when we do a site survey on a potential location where we're trying to make entry into, and what are the things that I would see that would be difficult to make entry? Because remember, if you're a bad guy trying to get inside, or if you're the good guys going to make a rescue, you want to find the path of least resistance. And look, much of the architecture out here, obviously with the ties to Mexico, much of the architecture is Spanish or Latin American type. And on the front door, and I've looked at that front door, you can see it, over my shoulder here. It's right behind me. It is a thick wood, hickory, oak type door. It's very, simple and synergist with the locality here. And in front of it, there's something that we call a rejas. And what is a rejas? It's a Spanish word. It's like ornate wrought iron grating, and usually they're put over windows or doors. And what do they allow? They allow for ventilation in or out, and they're also for security. Well, Mrs. Guthrie has one on her door. So that was an additional layer, and why this individual, this perp, this suspect, decided to go there to disable the Nest camera instead of, and our intrepid drone team has been out here and they've taken great drone footage from high above. You can look at the entire property. There's an outbuilding back there. There's a pool in the back. There are multiple points of entry that you could get into very easily. In the back of the house, there is a back door that's got like 9-panel window panes in it. You could have easily broken one panel, reached in your hand, unlocked the door, and gone in with nobody noticing. So why the suspect went to the front? We obviously know that Mrs. Guthrie was there at some point in time because we know that the blood spatter is there and the DNA came back to her. It really boggles the mind. This case gets confounding. And again, investigators certainly know more than I do. But as I look at this, and if I'm thinking about it from the good guy perspective trying to get in or the bad guy perspective, I don't understand why that front door would have been an option. You could have gotten into and out of that house, avoided the surveillance from that video camera on the front door, and brought her out the side where there are no surveillance cameras, and had a car there to take her away. It boggles the mind.
James, does it show you that she evidently won when she was dropped off by, we assume, the son-in-law? She went in the garage. So that means, I would assume, you go into the garage because the front door is locked. You make a choice. It's easier to hit a button than it is to maybe fumble for your keys. Would you assume the same thing? And would you think that a woman, an 84-year-old woman, would always be sure to keep that front door locked? And going in the garage, isn't that a further indication that it was locked? And then you wonder, did you break that door off the hinges? Did you pick? I don't know of anybody that picks a deadbolt lock. Maybe you do. What does that tell you?
Yeah, well, Brian, and we don't know how that garage door operates. Is it a key code pad?
Right.
Is it a traditional key? Was it left unlocked like sometimes people do? I can't imagine an 84-year-old woman reaching down and lifting that door up. It was probably an automatic garage door opener. Maybe she could have had that too. And here's the question too. Did the perp follow her into the house? But then it begs the question, why would he go back around to the front unless there was a vehicle waiting and that was going to come at a prescribed time, or he was going to message somebody to pull up out front to bring Mrs. Guthrie out, and he wanted to make sure that the Nest camera didn't pick up the vehicle approach. Again, I'm completely befuddled by why you wouldn't have gone through just a number of first-floor windows that don't have the rejas on them. They don't have that ornate grates over them like you see on many of the houses here, and why you would choose the front door unless he thought he could coerce her or trick her, some kind of ruse to get her to open the door. But when you're standing there dressed as he was, she's not going to open the door. So these are all the conflicting fact patterns, trying to figure out how this was. What I don't understand is this, and I'll close here. why haven't we learned yet if forced entry was the
Yes.
means of entering the house? And why did law enforcement initially state that and then quickly walk that back? I think that's a key piece of evidence here, and I don't know why. I've thought about this, why they haven't released that.
Right, we all have those questions and questions about the cameras. Some have said there were cameras found on the roof in the back. Other cameras inside. We want to see what those cameras caught. Did she have an alarm? If she's a woman, 84, living by herself, you would think she would have an alarm. What's the latest there? What about oppressor? It's been a while since we've heard from the police. The last time we were briefed from the sheriff's department, I should say, was what, a week ago? Are they planning on saying anything?
Yeah, so Ainsley, we've been asking around about that because obviously, you know, we want to get as much news as we can. In the very beginning, I think that they realize that sometimes too much information is not a good thing. It's not going to help. And when you have two agencies, the FBI has been kind of tight-lipped on this because, again, we are second seat, right? The Pima County Sheriff's Office, they are directing this investigation from the front. The FBI is in an advisory capacity. And that makes it difficult. You need a singular line of messaging. And that's why you would have a joint operations center. You'd have, you know, agents working with deputies. And that way, all of that information, there's a synergy there. And then there's one presser to put that out. They have stated repeatedly, we're not having another press conference unless or until we have a significant piece of evidence or information that the public needs to hear about.
But James, and I say this cautiously because the thin blue line exists for a reason. And many people in law enforcement understand the job and are hesitant to criticize rank and file. But when it comes to leadership, were there some failures here? Securing the crime scene, the way the grid search is being done, not using the proper equipment to make sure that the scene is not contaminated. Just now beginning this type of grid search. What do you see as an investigator that's done the job and has supervised the job?
Yeah, Lawrence, we definitely know that law enforcement has a tough job. And for 25 years, I saw things from the other side of the crime scene tape. And I know how difficult it is where you hear things said in the media, you hear somebody like me, an analyst, speculating about something, and you want to pull your hair out and say, that's wrong, that's not what's going on. When it comes to the conduct of the investigation, I will give the investigators the benefit of the doubt again because they've got a difficult and arduous task. The terrain out here, just the 14-hour time gap that you guys painstakingly walked through at the top of the show this morning to talk about how long the bad guy or bad guys had to get away and be long way away from here before, you know, authorities were notified. If I had to be critical of one thing, and I'll go on the record and say this, look, I'm a recovering elected official. The sheriff of Pima County, and it's not just him, sheriffs are historically elected positions. They're politicians first, and then they're also law enforcement officers. That's a tough position to be in because you've got to run for election again or re-election, and you've also got to think about serving the public. And it's a difficult capacity because law enforcement doesn't have to usually be elected. I would be critical of the messaging. I thought in the beginning, especially for a politician who are usually better speakers, I thought it was clumsy and it showed, look, the Pima County Sheriff's Office is 1,800 strong, 600 sworn deputies. They've got 9,000 miles of incorporated property here that they're in charge of. It's a large swath in territory. But I don't know, and I've looked up to see what the major cases that they had worked as a department. But I thought in the beginning, the mixed messaging that was sent out, the saying something and immediately walking back, if I had some critical things to say, that would be something I would want to see fixed. And I think not having more press conferences is probably their solution to that problem.
Yeah, tell us less. So this way I can't be wrong. I just think at some point, if the FBI director says this is the Keystone Cops operation from the inside, not the outside, I think maybe the president's got to get involved and say, you know what, I'm putting the FBI in charge of this. There's too much at stake. We got too many assets here. We gave you a shot. The FBI's got to take command. That's what you guys do. I'd be very curious, unless the reality on the inside is there, it's much better than it seems on the outside.
Yeah, Brian, I'll share this. I do talk to people that have talked to people inside the investigation, and not about particulars of the case and how it's going, but about the fact that there was a 48-hour period between the time that the case was first stood up and the Pima County Sheriff's Office, rightfully so, took over the purview of the case, and when the FBI was allowed into the investigation. 48 hours. Now, that's not the rank and file deputies. There's one right over my shoulder right now doing due diligence, walking the property, making sure it stays secure. It is literally that type of territoriality, and that happens in everything, that causes things like this to happen. That 48-hour gap, the fact that you have an elected official in charge of a sheriff's department that doesn't want to seen as ceding to the 500-pound gorilla. But I agree with your points. This should be an investigation, in my estimation, that the FBI should take the lead now.
Yeah.
Thanks, James.
Yep. When it's a matter of life or death, the best should be brought in immediately.
The president might have to get involved.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.